This week on My Global Adventure.
Now we are all in jail.
But share with me this energy.
And they went through so much that they have every right in the world to be bitter and angry and vindictive about, but they're not.
Right here.
South Africa, enjoying the nice, cool weather. We just spent a week in Tanzania being chased by lions and following wildebeests and jogging with zebras and all kinds of crazy stuff. So today we've decided to take it easy and hang out in what can only be described as the perfect example of European modernity. It's the mall, man!
I didn't know too terribly much about South Africa before we got there. I knew about apartheid a little bit, but as far as what to expect, I thought, well, it's a part of Africa, so it's going to be, like the rest of the African theme was, which it wasn't at all. It was so much more modern than I expected.
See, that says K4.
We're going to go check out the strip. It's a craft market down the strip, so we're going to go check it out.
Our African vacation was South Africa. It had definitely a rejuvenating effect on everyone. We could shop.
This one? Okay, so basically if I buy this one, all men over 40 will be interested.
In your necklace.
Pleasure, and yet we almost had a guilty feeling about feeling so good in South Africa because South Africa has this dark, brooding undertone, its history.
On the very edge.
I didn't really know specific details about Robben Island, so I didn't really have an expectation of what it was going to be like. I thought it would be much more prison-like, very barren, very high-walled, and a total lack of beauty. It wasn't. It was actually a pretty island. Unfortunately, the history behind that island was not so pretty. Robben Island served as a prison from the early days of Dutch colonization until the arrival of majority rule in the early 90s. Today, it's a tourist attraction with over 300 visitors a day. Its most famous prisoner was Nelson Mandela.
Okay, good morning, children.
But Lionel Davis was there too.
I am very well.
Short of actually being able to meet Nelson Mandela himself, Lionel was the next best thing. He was brilliant. He was so well-spoken. He was so gentle-spirited.
Many of these young people went to jail. Many of them were shot. Many of them were tortured.
He was very passionate and very expressive about it. I think it really drew you into the experience. It drew me into the experience.
So that is Mandela's last cell.
And if you look at the faces of the kids that were there with me, it drew them in too.
Coloreds and Indians were treated a bit better. They got better schooling than black children.
There was a strange moment where we went into the cell room. He slammed the door shut.
All right, now we are all in jail.
And it just echoed. It was like a piercing echo. And it echoed inside too.
This is what we know as a general cell or a communal cell. There would be sometimes up to 80 prisoners sleeping in a cell like this. But you did not have a bed to sleep on. This was your bed. That was your bed. You had 3 thin blankets, a mat. You didn't have a pillow. And when we first came here, these blankets were full of lice. We had to wash out these blankets, scrub it clean. In our day, they used to cane you. If a warder tells you to do something and you refuse to do it, he will report you. And then they whip you across your naked buttocks and treat you like a child. That is what they were doing, trying to break your spirit. Thank you very much.
It was a really significant moment where you realize we as tourists, years later, we can leave this store, but these guys couldn't. They didn't, and they didn't for years and years and years. And it really hit home.
These children coming here today, we hope to instill in them a feeling of anti-racism, anti-xenophobia.
One of the things that has always struck me about Nelson Mandela, and that really also struck me with Lionel, is that they went through so much pain, and they went through so much that they have every right in the world to be bitter and angry and vindictive about, but they're not.
So that they can take it back into their communities, to their churches.
It was a day that changed my attitude about things. It will take a while to get that into practice, but I really want to use that as a role model for how I want to act when bitterness or anger or resentment comes up within me, because that's significant. After meeting Lionel, I was left with the need to know how apartheid affected those outside the prison walls of Robben Island. So I headed to District 6, a Cape Town neighborhood that has documented its experience with its own commemorative museum. District 6 was once home to many different cultural groups, but during apartheid, District 6 was declared a white area. Residents were evicted and their homes and streets bulldozed. All that remains are the original street signs, salvaged by the soft-hearted foreman of the wrecking crew.
The foreman who bulldozed the area, his job was also to dump everything in the ocean, you know, all the rubble. But again, he saved all the signs, you know, he did us a great favor in doing that. We're happy, we're very happy he did that, you know, because the signs are very powerful. When ex-residents come into the museum, the first thing they ask is, hey, where's my sign, you know? And if the sign is not there, there's trouble, believe me. Now, I used to live here, let me...
Noor Ebrahim was once a resident of District 6 and is now education director for the museum.
So my house was right on this corner here. Many whites lived there, blacks, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, Indians, Hindus, you name it. And we were like one big happy family. But that was a problem, you know, the apartheid government didn't like that. So they came to me 2 weeks before that time, and the guy said to me, you must be out by, say, September the 1st. And as we drove off, immediately the bulldozer pulled behind me, and then they started bulldozing my home. And I stopped in the middle of the street, and my wife said, why are you stopping? I said, no, you know, I have to go back. So I turned back to watch them. I was actually standing next to the guy who bulldozed my home, and I cried, you know. And that's what happened to thousands of people witnessing that bulldozing, and that was sad, you know.
If I wanted to make a personal connection to apartheid, Noor was it. At one point, he walked us along a wall that had photos of District 6 when it was still theirs. And he stopped at one in particular and told us this story about how he used to raise homing pigeons. And the day that his house was bulldozed, he had moved to another place. And he would let the birds out for a little while, and they would usually come back. But this one day he had let them out, and they didn't come back, and they didn't come back.
That morning I stopped right opposite where my house used to be. And when I got out of my car, and guess what? All my pigeons came home. But this was, I mean, this was unbelievable, unbelievable. They were facing, you know, the sea, the harbor. And I tiptoed behind them, and some of them actually turned around and looked at me, as if they want to ask me, where is our home? And I cried.
Oh man, that story was intense. It was this moment where, like, I was naked. I was unable to respond or to know how to respond. Wow. What do you say? I'm sorry.
But again,
You can't live in the past, and yes, let's acknowledge what happened. Let's build a museum to District 6 so people always remember, but let's not live in that museum. Let's live outside with our kids, with our futures, with the country that we have now that has to move on. I was really excited to do this. This is what I wanted to have come from the physical adventure. Day 76, 11:15 a.m. We have just arrived in Huntsby, about 2.5 hours outside of Cape Town. The web audience has made their choice for my physical adventure here in South Africa, and I can't wait to dive into it, literally. Excellent. This is what I wanted to have come from the physical adventures. You know, put me in a situation that scares the crap out of me. Put me in a situation that, something I've never done before.
We are more than ready.
We're 12 ready.
And the only thing now we need is Mother Nature to cooperate and some great whites to cooperate.
Everybody cross your fingers.
Yesterday, we phoned, and they told us there was no hope for us to go shark diving. We, however, have not lost hope. What do you think? No?
Not likely.
Not likely. That's not a definitive no, though, hey? They were just calling to see if there's any chance in hell that we were going to be able to go out today. I'm guessing your answer is no.
We made the calls. They said there's no way we're going on the water unless we want to get ourselves in some severe trouble. So we tried to fill the physical adventure. Believe me, I wanted to do it.
So on one hand, it was like, okay, well, you know, we've had the horseshoe in our hand for this long, so I guess it was bound to happen. On the other hand, I was really bummed. Shark diving may be a no-go, but fortunately, our guide and driver, Hugh Stevens, just came up with an alternative. Hugh was actually a mountaineer. We thought, okay, well, we've got this guy here who happens to be a mountaineer, let's let him lead the way. And he found a spot that he thought, okay, even if the weather doesn't cooperate, we'll be okay here, and we decided to abseil, which rocked my boat because I love abseiling anyways.
How long have you been doing this, Hugh?
20 years.
20 years? Oh, I feel much better about doing this with you now.
Okay, you remember how you must go over the edge, don't stand on the edge, just sort of lower yourself. If you stand up there, you might just slip off the rock.
So sort of like backwards climb it for the first bit, hey?
Yeah, backward climbing.
Right.
Yeah, equal tension on all the ropes. Come this way. I'm just pretty.
You think you're nervous?
I'm very nervous about it. I double check it, you know.
It's so thick. Oh, yeah. Right here.
Okay.
Slippery, slippery rock. Ugh. Woo-hoo! Can we do it again? Hugh, thanks for salvaging what could have been a wasted day.
I would call Hugh my friend, and that makes me happy because sometimes we don't get to know our guides or the people that we interact with in countries that well. I feel like we got to know Hugh that well. The Kailicha township was what I thought we were going to encounter a lot more of in South Africa. So it wasn't totally unprepared for it, but after seeing how the standard of living was so much better in other parts of South Africa, it was a little bit more of a stark contrast than I expected. Day 78, we're back in Cape Town, which in many ways could be any city in North America. Cradled in the shadow of Table Mountain, it's a beautiful city, European in flavor, yet African in its heart. A contrasting mix of first and third worlds. Since the end of apartheid, it's been a city in transition, in a country unsure of its own identity, something I can certainly relate to. When you take somebody from everything that they know, from a pattern that's been established for a certain amount of time, from an environment that's familiar, and throw them into something totally new, it lends itself to confusion. Nowhere is this transition more evident than in Kailicha, one of the largest black townships on the southern tip of Africa. The idea behind the townships was to provide somewhere for Africans to live when they were forcibly removed from areas designated as white. Yet there are many here who are turning from the pain of the past and focusing instead on hope for the future. One of them is Tope Liku.
But share with me this energy that you're having.
I have energy. Holy cow.
Tope is a strong, joyful African woman who saw early on that the best way to help herself and those around her was to learn to be self-sufficient. She gradually moved from social work to opening her home as a bed and breakfast, which is where I'm staying tonight.
At bakery, I make my homemade bread. Yeah.
Beyond just being a really good-natured, outgoing, boisterous kind of person, Tope was also very well educated and very involved in the whole process of improving townships.
This is the owner of the shop?
He's the owner, yes.
Hello. He was at a Maasai greeting there.
I always tell people that in Khayelitsha, people are trying all kinds of initiatives. There's a lot of entrepreneurial development that is happening. People are taking control of their lives despite the conditions that we are living in. I'm also proud to show you this man. When I first met him, he was pushing a trolley with his fruit and veg, ringing the bell, selling to us. I stopped one day when passing him and said to him, "What? I'm so impressed about what you are doing."
I think that Tope's idea for how she wants the townships to improve is just brilliant, because it's not a handout anymore. It's not still being the victim of apartheid. It's about having the people help themselves, becoming self-sufficient.
So people are starting to create jobs for themselves, which is very impressive.
I find that I admire Tope without really understanding her situation. And I continue to be amazed by the ability of these people to forgive and move on.
Oh! Avery. That's great, I like that. A woman's place is in the struggle.
I think it's just something that you don't understand that strength until you need it. Maybe you don't even have that strength until you need it. I know that there's still difficulty and there's still a lot of leftovers from what apartheid has done to people in Africa, but this township was a good example of what can happen and what will happen if enough people get onto this bandwagon, and just the forward thinking that needs to happen to move people from what we saw, to where they're going. That kind of forward thinking is the foundation of projects like the one we're about to visit next, where single mothers are learning to help their children while learning to help themselves.
That's awesome.
Situated in the heart of Khayelitsha Township is the Fulani Nutrition Project. Outside, it's surrounded by barbed wire, but inside, freedom is the name of the game. Now, these clinics are exclusively for mothers with malnourished children. Okay. The project works on 2 levels. First, it's a kind of medical clinic where unemployed single mothers can bring their children for health assessment, immunization, and proper nutrition.
These 2, they are working in an outreach program. They help us during the clinic, weighing the children. Otherwise, they most of the time they work in the community where they reach out all the malnourished mothers and educate them.
And they would have been mothers that were brought in originally and then taught how to do it, and now they continue to give back to the process.
Then they make 10.
Fulani is also a training center where those same mothers can learn skills that will provide them with an income.
The reason why we want them to learn doing the weaving is that since they don't have an income in their homes, we let them learn to weave so that they are able to weave the mat and then sell them.
Those that find weaving too difficult are taught how to print fabric in the project's development center.
Supervisor.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Asia. So where do they get the inspiration for the patterns like this?
Okay, they've got somebody who's helping them with the drawings. Okay. Yes, he draws the designs, then puts them at the back of the loom, like this.
Okay.
Yes. Then they will make exactly this, but I think they choose themselves the colors to mix there so that they can have a nice design.
Right.
continuously. We have to empower our people, because I think the era of apartheid actually has led most of our community unemployable and being illiterate. And so I think that if they could actually do things by their hand, and then you can be able to survive. Which means that these mothers have demonstrated. Some they could not read and write, but they can actually produce some of these good, beautiful pieces.
You're trying to move from a theoretical understanding of what South Africa has gone through to a practical one. There's some questions that come up. You wake up in the morning and then you do what? And the Fulani Nutritional Project was like an answer to that question. You know, it was people finally saying, okay, we've got to get down to it. We've got to bring ourselves up from this level down here up to a level where we're helping each other, where we're moving forward. I don't think I was alone in feeling that South Africa was a break. Once we got to South Africa, it was like a bit of a holiday. You know, we were still working, but all of those little things that were so difficult in other countries weren't difficult there. We were also feeling a little more free to laugh and to joke and to have a good time, to enjoy the energy of South Africa, because along with the negativity of apartheid, there's a positivity, energy there. That people want to move forward and they want to change. And when we got there, I mean, that's what we're doing on this trip. We're moving forward, we're moving all the time, we're changing. And I think that we reacted with that vibe a little bit. It was all good.
Coming up on My Global Adventure.
Maybe I've been over my head. Maybe I didn't understand what I was getting into when I signed on. Maybe I overestimated myself and what I was capable of.